Gamebox Monthly sends a new awesome indie tabletop game right to your door every month. There are multiple subscriptions to choose from, and you can personalize them to fit your style. Also, you're guaranteed to never get a title you already have, letting you focus on what matters most, having a great time with great people.
So visit GameboxMonthly.com and use the promo code DRAGON to get an exclusive discount just for the hell with this listeners.
Once again, that's GameboxMonthly.com.
Rediscover social.
This podcast brought to you by Audible.com.
Whatever you listen to something other than this.
Welcome to another episode of The Hell With This and Underrated Movie Podcast. I am here with Brian Finifter, our corporate overlord.
Greetings. What?
You're the sponsor of the show.
Am I?
Yeah.
You mean...
Well, Gamebox Monthly.
It is?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, because you're on Dragon Wagon now.
Dragon
that's
Wagon
right.
Radio.
I completely forgot about that connection.
How many shows are they up to now? They have like a dozen shows? We're just a drop in the bucket.
It's like maybe 8 or so.
Okay.
Counting my own show that we do like once a month or so.
I'm sure it's much better than this one.
But
thanks for bringing your...
Honestly, they're very similar. At least the last commentary or the last podcast I did with you was The Big Short and it was all about, the financial crisis and all that.
Mm-hmm.
The show that I do with Jake on Dragon Wagon is just an economics show, and it's just me ranting about economics for half or 45 minutes. So it's literally the same show that I already did with you before.
Yeah. Is it cut down at all, or do you just turn it on and go?
Yeah, we just turn it on, and if we get, we've only done 3, I think, at this point. But if we get off to a super tangent, we might cut that tangent out. But otherwise, it's just me trying to explain as best I can something to Jake, who knows nothing about economics.
Right. Like most people, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I know the bare minimum.
Right. And, trying to shoot down a lot of... It's what I didn't want it to, but what it's mostly turning into anyway is basically me just shooting down libertarianism in various
libertarians.
So our last one was about why trickle-down economics doesn't work, why that's all stupid. The one before that was about rent-seeking and net neutrality, and then the first one was about externalities, which I think we probably talked about.
A little bit, I think.
On The Big Short.
Did we talk about trickle-down at all on The Big Short?
We must have.
I'm not sure if that was even... I don't know. But I remember reading recently online that the original concept that we understand now is trickle-down.
Yeah.
Used to be called horse and sparrow economics.
I've never heard that term before.
Oh, well,
yeah.
The idea is you give the horse all the grain and the sparrow can feed on what it shits.
Yeah.
Guess who's eating the shit? It's the little guys out here.
Yeah, trickle-down's gone by a lot of different names. But if you want to check that out, you can. And then you can also check out our corporate overlord sponsor, which is also me at Gamebox Monthly.
And what's your tagline at Gamebox Monthly?
Oh,
Rediscover
social.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
I did my homework, kind
of. Do you do like an actual pitch for a Gamebox?
Yeah. We've got like a pre-recorded thing that I think everybody heard at the head of this episode.
Okay. All right.
With Chad and me.
Cool.
We could redo it with you and I if you
want. give them the same pitch twice.
Right.
No, that's all right.
Okay. Well, how's everything going in personal life and business and everything?
Good. Just kind of plugging away still. Yeah, I guess it's been a while since I've been here, but this is a little ways back at this point, but we totally rebuilt our website.
Mm-hmm.
We as part of that refined the personalization aspect. So people, when they sign up, they can tailor their subscription to what they kind of like, what aspects of gaming they like. If they like this mechanic or that genre, they can tailor it to themselves. So
Feel
we
like game with dice, you can give them more of those. that
exactly,
sort of thing.
exactly, or a modular playing board or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we overhauled how that system, so that works like a lot more interestingly now.
And you already had the feature where you can say what you already have.
Yes, and we had that. Yeah, so so if you sign up and you go, oh, or you're worried about signing up and getting a game you already own, you can put it in your collection, and then we'll make sure not to send you anything that you tell us that you already have. And then
if they do anyway, it's free.
Yeah, and sometimes every now and then we screw it up, and when we do, we'll fix it and send a replacement shipment.
Oh, well, we can cut that part out about screwing up. We don't need to tell everybody about that. I was just trying to make you go, what? Free? Maybe. I don't know.
No, I'm probably more truthful than I probably should be sometimes in terms of like, oh yeah, I screw up all the time.
I can only speak for myself, but I appreciate the transparency because so many little things start up and you go like, who are these people? What are they doing? Like, am I working or am I paying a bunch of board members who don't really care and they're just trying to find a new way to take my money?
Yep.
Or are they talking to somebody who's interested in what they're selling?
Or or is there which is the number one kind of challenge a lot of the times when dealing with a audience or whatever potential customer base that's otherwise skeptical, because they will assume like, oh, they're just out to scam you, or they're just a corporate board or whatever, and it takes like a lot of both just actual effort and emotional effort to go, no, I'm a person, like I'm doing the best I can and I screw up and I'll try to own that when I can, as much as I can, but I promise you I am a person with good intentions on the other side of this computer screen. And sometimes it can be really hard to get through to somebody.
You're not a deadbeat eBay seller.
Or Amazon seller, which is the other bane of my existence.
Oof.
Yeah, so but yeah. And then the other aspect is that we're starting to set up different relationships with more publishers, so the actual kind of catalog of games that we can send people has expanded dramatically.
Good.
So it used to be just like half a dozen or so, and now it's over 100.
You know what? If I did not work in TV, I probably would join up for this thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, working in TV takes up all of my goddamn time.
Yeah.
I can get home and watch an episode of Ozark or something and then hit the sack.
Yeah. You would be amazed at how little board games I play in the process of running a business about board games. I went to
I'm sure you do a little bit of product research though.
Oh yeah. But I have somebody who's kind of like focusing on that now. So ever since that, I do even less. I went to a game night of local designers and publishers that I go to often, and the guy who organizes it was like, hey, so what have you played recently, Brian? And I thought, and I was like,
Yahtzee. Solitaire.
I've not played a board game since the last time I was at this game night with you guys 3 weeks ago or whatever it was. So, but oh well, one of these days I'll sell it and then I'll have all the time in the world. Maybe.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
For billions and billions.
Billions and billions of dollars. So.
Well, the movie you brought us today is not an underrated or unknown film at all, but
true.
I haven't seen it probably since I was 16.
Oh, wow.
It's been a long time. I kind of went like, that movie was great. I don't think I need to see it again. Like, it's great. It's not going to get better if I watch it again.
Like Requiem for a Dream, but for a slightly different reason.
Yeah,
Oh, that was great. I'm never watching that again.
Right. That was because it's very hard to watch. This one is like, well, I don't know. We'll get into Ron Howard's repertoire later, but it's it's a Hollywood true story kind of movie.
Yep.
But it's an exceptionally good one, if I recall correctly.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
It's certainly one of my favorites. I'm a big space nerd. Anything to do with space and space travel, and so it really is one of the finest, I think, true events telling of a movie. A movie based on real events. I think it's one of the finest examples of those that you can find. And yeah, I'm just a big space nerd, so I thought it'd be fun to do this. I actually almost was totally late to be here today because I was playing Kerbal Space Program, and I completely lost track of time.
Kerbal Space Program, for the uninformed, is you control a squad of little alien men and you build custom space
you
shuttles
build
and
rockets
stuff.
and you actually send them to. It's basically like a miniature version of the solar system, and you basically explore space and planets with it. But all the physics is a scaled down version of real physics. So like to play Kerbal Space Program, you have to understand actual orbital mechanics, which is insane. Like, and now I do. I didn't before Kerbal Space Program, and now I sort of do, which is insane. So anyway, yeah.
I have seen some crazy videos of Kerbal Space Program
Yeah,
of
there are
the
people that-
wackiest rockets people built that actually fly.
Yeah. Let's just say that the aerodynamics of Kerbal Space Program is very forgiving.
Okay, because
So
it's still a game.
Yeah, it's still a game,
wants to be
and
fun.
it wants to be like there are flight simulators that are super hard, right?
Mhm.
In terms of flight, it's a lot easier, and then there are mods where you can scale it up. So basically, to make the physics work, they scaled everything down, and it sort of makes everything easier, but still basically the same. And there are mods that you can add that scale it up to life size. And those make it so much harder. So much harder.
So it's basically a virtual rocket model that you're flying.
Yeah, well, it's like a space agency game. Like it's more than just one mission.
Mm-hmm.
It's progressing through like your first flight, but then going to the moon and then going beyond.
Do you have to beat the Russians to Jupiter or something?
There
Do they give you goals like that?
There are mods like that, and I think they're coming out with their first expansion, which I think is like that, where you have to actually race against race against time, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's what their next expansion is, or their first expansion is going to be. So, yeah.
Again, if only I had the time. That's one that seems a lot of fun to me.
Yeah. Oh, I sink way too much time. Way too much time into Kerbal Space Program.
All games need to come with a counter, a timer, so you know exactly how many hours you've put into it.
Well, that's,
They do that
on
Steam.
on Steam, you can do that. And I've actually been playing Kerbal since before you could get it on Steam, which thank God, because if I had that counter on Steam from how many hours I played from Kerbal Space Program, it would be, I have no idea what that number is, and that's for the best.
I could have cured cancer with all that time.
I could have learned 15 languages in the time that I've spent. I could have learned actual orbital mechanics and aerospace engineering in the time that I've spent playing Kerbal Space Program, probably.
What job are you going to have doing that, though? At least Kerbal Space Program is fun.
Well,
and that's the idea. It's entertaining.
The job that I wanted at 16 that I'm too old for now.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Well, let's watch a fictional version of of all of your dreams that you'll never have. Let's pop in the movie now.
That I will never realize. At least unless I turn in, I get rich.
Apollo 13 flight controllers, give me a go, no go for launch.
You know that Easter vacation trip we had planned for Acapulco?
Procedures. Go. Control.
Go flight.
There might be a slight change in destination.
Really?
Maybe say the moon.
Booster.
Go.
Retro.
We're go flight.
GNC.
We're go.
And I take the controls and I steer it around
FAO.
We're go flight.
for a nice, soft landing on the moon. Better than Neil Armstrong.
Does it bother you that the public regards this flight as routine?
There's nothing routine about flying to the moon. I can vouch for that.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
The clock is running.
Houston, we have cleared the tower at 1313.
Okay, guys. We're going to the moon.
This is the crew of the Apollo 13, wishing everyone back on Earth a pleasant evening.
Houston, we have a problem.
We got a wicked shimmy up here.
Houston, we are venting something out into space. It's definitely a gas of some sort.
It's like the heart rates are skyrocketing.
The Apollo 13 spacecraft is apparently losing breathing oxygen. The emergency has ruled out any chance of a lunar landing.
Why are so many people here? Something broke on your daddy's spaceship.
I have a request from the news people.
Take it up with my husband. He'll be home.
on Friday.
Slightly, I've lost the radio contact.
Econ, what's your data telling you?
It's reading a quadruple failure. That can't happen. It's got to be instrumentation.
The ship's bleeding to death.
This rate, we're going to skip right out of the atmosphere, and we're never going to get back.
We're looking at less than 15 minutes of life support in the Odyssey.
We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not going to lose one on my watch.
Odyssey, do you read me?
How long does it take to power up the LEM?
3 hours by the checklist.
We don't have that much time.
Apollo 13, a
Yeah.
film by Ron Howard. One of your favorites.
Yeah, it is that movie that's like, doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, that moment where Mission Control erupts into applause, like that moment gets me every time. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. And I realized I completely forgot to mention this at the top, but like one of the reasons that I know it so well, like the back of my hand, is because in college, or shortly after college, when I was done college, my friends and I made a parody of Apollo 13 that was really just this dumb idea of like Thanksgiving dinner, but as Apollo 13. And we made it, and it's really funny, I think, still.
No, I remember seeing that. That was a funny idea.
Yeah, it was. And
I
it was,
can't remember the specifics, but like the turkey is overheating. Like, what do we do? Okay, here's all the stuff we have. Figure it out, people.
Yeah, well, probably one of my favorite jokes is that they have 2 fire alarms, 2 smoke detectors, because it's NASA. They always have a backup. And then our parody of the whole we're venting something into space scene. It's like, oh, something went wrong in the oven with the turkey, and they're like peering through the window trying to figure out what it is. It's definitely a poultry of some sort. It's got to be the turkey. It's like, of course it's the turkey. You know the turkey's in the oven. Anyway, so that was really fun to make, and what ended up, one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me ended up happening because of that. Fred Hayes, the actual Fred Hayes, Bill Paxton's character, came and gave a talk at my school. And we hadn't even actually finished the movie yet, but I had kind of a rough cut put together. And I was like, I'm going to give him a copy. I don't know, this is dumb, but like, so I went up to it, like a little meet and greet afterwards, and I was like, Mr. Hayes, such an honor to meet you. I don't even remember what I said, but I gave him a copy. Anyway. It turns out he ended up forwarding it to Gene Kranz, Ed Harris's character, who then emailed me and was like, said it was really like, hey, I really enjoyed your parody. Like, the actual guy that Ed Harris plays emailed me, some schmuck in Florida at the time, and went, yeah, the thing you made was really funny, where you made fun of the most harrowing 3 days of my life. And then he forwarded it to Jim Lovell, Tom Hanks's character. And so they actually ended up going to or appearing at an astronaut convention, because those are the things that exist.
Okay. I mean, other people can go, not just astronauts.
Yes, so, yeah. Okay. It was like any other, like, you know, convention. You're like, come to this convention and meet these people. Yeah, get your picture with them. So they were there along with a bunch of others, including Aldrin. And so probably the single greatest moment in my life ever occurred at this convention. We went up to Gene Kranz. He knew we were coming. I took my friend and I, my friend who had helped me edit it, and said, "Hey, hi, Mr. Kranz. You know, we're so and so. We made that movie." And so, he was so happy to see us. He just laughed and smiled. And then he got up, came from around his desk, his table, and led us over to the table kind of on the other side of the room where Jim Lovell was sitting at his table signing his autographs. And went, "Hey Jim, these are the guys. Come meet these guys." And,
you're the guys.
Yeah.
To them.
And James Lovell, Captain James Lovell, the only man in history to ever journey to the moon twice without walking on it, and only one of 3 people in all of history to travel to the moon twice under any circumstances.
Can we say he traveled to the moon if he didn't really touch the moon?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway. that this, you know, towering American hero looked up at us, had a big smile on his face, and jumped up into light to meet us. And
filmmaking, it's the keys to the kingdom.
Because of this stupid little movie, this little comedy movie that we had made in my friend's house
you're lucky
over
it's
a couple
funny.
of nights.
If it was bad, they might have been like, yeah, okay, kid, see ya.
Yeah, sure. And I do know that Level forwarded it to Tom Hanks, but I've never heard anything from Tom Hanks.
Well, I'll see if I can get in touch with him.
Yeah.
He's on Twitter now.
So the thing is, like, I've been waiting. I've been in Los Angeles for 10 years now, working in the industry, just waiting to, like, work on something with Tom Hanks to get within spitting distance of Tom Hanks. And I can go up to him and be like, because you already have the icebreaker.
Uh-huh.
And I know we would be best friends if I could just get within distance.
Yeah, physical distance.
Physical
though.
distance.
Like, not digital
and
distance.
that makes me sound like a stalker. But, you know.
You're not actively stalking him.
No,
it's different.
I'm just waiting for the prime opportunity. So anyway, that was this just really crazy random thing that happened to me that is a fun story to share. And my friend Ryan, who plays Gene Kranz, is now an air traffic controller. Like, because everybody except me basically is in the aerospace industry in some way, shape, or form.
These are all friends from Florida.
Yeah,
and I assume
from
Florida
the college.
is big in the aerospace industry because that's where all that happens.
Well, yeah, the college I went to is, sometimes it calls itself the Harvard of the skies, which we obviously made fun of it for having that kind of pretension. But yeah, it's a very aviation focused school. And the guy, actually, my friend Anthony, who played Jim Lovell in it, is now actually a flight director at Johnson Space Center himself. So the guy that we had play Jim Lovell is now has Gene Kranz's job.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's good when plans work out for people.
Yeah. Well, he's one of those guys that, like, no, that's what I want to do. And he just did it.
Yeah. Like,
everybody else in their life is like, I'm going to do this. And you end up like an accountant at 45. Right. And you're like, what the hell happened?
I think some people just get bounced around like ping pong balls or pinballs, I mean to say. There's a lot of luck involved in that stuff. But I guess if you don't ever get out of those people's faces who can hire you for that kind of work, and you're just like, hey, I'm here, ready to go. For work. He
eventually had his one singular goal of where he wanted to get to, and he just recently got there. He just recently was promoted.
Oh.
So yeah.
Which person was the one who was in charge of dousing the rocket flame so it didn't incinerate the rocket?
That's my other friend, Travis, the one who helped me edit. So the friend I brought to the astronaut convention. So he used to work at Kennedy Space Center, and I have a bunch of other friends that also used to work at Kennedy Space Center, but don't any longer once the space shuttle program ended. Mm-hmm. They kind of fired a lot of people when that happened. They're like, there's not much for people to do. So bye.
So you love space.
I do love space.
And you were saying before we started rolling it only costs about $5,000 to take one of those 0G flights that lasts about 40 seconds.
That's true. Yeah.
And one day,
maybe
you find out you have a terminal disease and you say, "Fuck it, I'm going on the plane."
Yeah. Well, absolutely one of the things that I do.
Barring the accumulation of wealth, I mean.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you'll just make a lot of money and you can do it every weekend.
Well, hopefully the Ethereum that I have stocked away will be worth quite a bit of money at some point. And I'll use some of that for it. But yeah, I have other friends, also from the same school, who work for that company, and are one of them is a flight attendant for it, like that company's version of a flight attendant, like, float around and help all the paying customers do all their stuff. So yeah, anyway, we should probably talk about the movie itself.
A little bit. I mean, we don't have to. This is I'm really glad I rewatched this because it's even better than I remember. I remember it being kind of schmaltzy and cheesy, but it's really not.
It really isn't. No,
it shows people getting through the real story of people getting through one of the most dangerous things that's ever happened to people.
Yeah.
And it's handled with the appropriate seriousness. There's not a lot of jokes. There's some kind of like frazzled engineers who are kind of the comic relief, but it is emotionally captivating. Like pretty much every second of this. Even the scene when Tom Hanks, you left the room, is doing math while their whole ship is being jostled around by the random
they're figuring out what's gone wrong. Yeah,
him doing math is it's just the editing, I think. Like, you know, all these numbers that obviously we don't know what any of that means. Maybe you do.
Actually, yeah, I couldn't do the math, but I know what math they're doing. Yeah,
we just know
it's actually not that difficult of math, but. Yeah. Anyway.
He's doing this stuff by hand, and a lot of people that's their nightmare already. Doing complex math by hand. But he's in a tinfoil spaceship in the vacuum of endless space, and he's got to wait on like people down in Houston to triple check his math because he can't be sure he's doing it right.
Right.
Turns out he did it right, and everything's fine. But even that is like edge of your seat kind of shit.
Yeah.
And it's the editing style is much more straightforward than Dunkirk. Have you seen Dunkirk?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's that same level of anxiety through most of the movie. It's always like as soon as they fix one problem, two more pop up.
What I love about Ron Howard's quote unquote style is the fact that he doesn't really have one. He's very straightforward. Yeah, he's very versatile. And he's just very good at like he doesn't rub himself all over it whatever he does, right? Like he's very focused on the story, and you don't see like, you know, Wes Anderson kind of type. It's just the story with him. And
in this movie, I haven't seen a lot of his more recent things because it's like the Da Vinci Code movies Rush, things like that. He is not boring as a director in his movie. It's not just coverage. It's like every shot is interesting. He's getting weird angles, and he's moving the camera in a certain way. And I really like, I'm sure it was just written this way. It has nothing to do with Ron Howard directly. But near the end, after the lander, or whatever, the final capsule they're in, they're waiting on it to come out of blackout. And the last time we see the astronauts is while they're still burning through the atmosphere. And then we're in blackout too for the next couple minutes while we're waiting for everybody to see what happens next.
And we're just watching Mission Control and his wife and, you know, his son.
A lot of other storytellers, whether it's writers, editors, or directors, would have shown what's happening sort of in real time inside their little capsule to drive up the tension even more. But in this case, just sitting there staring at the TV screen is what drives that.
That's
home.
the tension.
It's just like, oh my God, it's been over 4 minutes. And somebody just said it in the last scene, if it takes more than 4 minutes, we got our answer. They're not alive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did notice some of the movies. There were several shots where we start inside the capsule and then we fly through a window, and then we zip out into space. That was a very Peter Jackson-y camera
and those
move.
shoshots don't hold up too well. Like they hold up pretty well.
You can see
for
the
being 23
two-dimensionalness of the window shot.
Yeah,
oh, they just kind of smushed
and
that.
they're like, and scaling, like once it gets a little far away, but you can still make out the shapes inside the window. Like the sizing doesn't quite match. But
I feel like that shot was used about 3, maybe 4 times in this movie.
Yeah, I think so.
And I kind of, it wore on me. By the last one, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But overall, he kind of saved those shots for the real epic moments, like, oh no, a new alarm is going off. We're running out of CO2.
Yeah.
And then it shows them floating through a black void.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just works.
What I love about this movie so much is that, and yeah, it is based on real events and pretty faithful to them. Like I was telling you during the movie, all of the intra crew, oh, Jack Swigert, we don't know if he can do the job, and did Jack Swigert screw up? All of that is completely made up. None of that is real in any way. It's like, yeah, he was the backup pilot, so he was trained to be the backup, which he was, and he did. Everybody, like, that's fine.
That's why he got the fucking job.
Yeah, that's the exact reason he was there in the whole first place. But what I love about this movie is that it's just humans solving problems, and that's, you know, it's such a, like, part of the reason why I'm a big space nerd is because it gets to my, and especially with, you know, the moon, the Apollo program and moon landings specifically, is it gets to the heart of our ability as a species or a people or a country or whatever frame you want to put on it, our ability to do whatever we put our mind to. Like
at the beginning of the movie, he said, like, nothing happened
that
by
line.
chance. Like, we decided to go to the moon, and then we did it.
It wasn't a miracle. We just decided to do it.
Yeah.
And I love that kind of mindset and that philosophy. And so everything, you know, the whole rest of the movie is just an expression of, like, no, okay, here's this problem. We just have to solve this problem. And you get through, and kind of like Matt Damon talks about in The Martian, he's like, well, if you solve enough problems, then you get to come home, right?
Yeah,
and that's kind of Apollo 13 too. But that's all it is. And there's nothing, so much of others, especially movie storytelling and modern movie storytelling, tries to take on these larger parable aspects, you know, like, oh, well, this has some kind of, you know,
it's going up on some kind of a soapbox to talk about the human condition.
Not even that. It's like some like metaphysical, like, oh, what, this is fate, and this is, you know, it's ordained fate to be this way, and that's why it happened this way. It's like, no, it happened that way because you're a lazy writer. That's why it happened.
Or it's just people shooting at each other.
Yeah. And what is so great about this movie, and what is so rare about movies in general, is that it's just people solving problems.
And the movie even sets things up as very mundane, because the news isn't even showing the launch of Apollo 13.
Right.
Like, after the moon landing, nobody cares anymore.
Right. Well, they talk about, like, okay, we did it. Why
are we
Apollo
doing it
11
again?
landed and we beat the Russians. Why are we still doing this?
And yeah, so the I guess he's the media concierge or whatever for NASA, that character.
Yeah.
He says, well, you know, now there's something happening. Now it's more dramatic. People all over the world are interested.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's sad that things have to go wrong. Things
Yeah.
have to become a train wreck for people to care about things.
Yeah.
There's too many goddamn people in the world.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah.
I mean, the state of NASA today. Did the Trump budget totally take it down?
I honestly I do not pay attention to anymore, and I haven't for a while, whatever the president's plan for NASA is, because every time it's the same thing. Republican or Democrat, this is one thing in which they are the same. It's just like, oh, well, okay, now the Obama administration or now the Bush administration, we're going to go back to the moon and we're going to go to Mars and blah, blah, blah. And every time it's like they put this great plan in place. They never appropriate the money for it, and it doesn't really happen.
I remember seeing something like Trump said, yeah, we should totally get people on Mars. That'd be great. And then they released the budget, and he's like, look, we gave NASA $3 billion. And then all the NASA people are going, last year we had $4 billion. What the fuck? We got a $1 billion cut.
Yeah.
So they keep on, taking it down by small increments. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So nobody finally goes, what? NASA only has $500 this year.
And in comparison, so NASA represents about 0.5% of the federal budget. And during the Apollo program, it represented about 1% of the federal budget.
So look at what you can achieve
with 1%.
With 1%, if they just had a little bit more. But people I don't know, I think people get hung up in life on Earth. They get stuck on the idea, like, no, every cent of that should be going to schools.
Right.
Never mind that all the stuff NASA does is kind of like going to need more people from good schools, like, to take those jobs. And if you make the investment in that kind of research, it affects every other part of our lives in the country.
Yeah. Well, there's a very real thing, to hop over to economics for just a second. There's a very real thing called the multiplier effect in economics, which is if you spend $1 in a particular place, it results in 2, 5, 7, however many dollars of economic activity.
I've heard of that assigned to like welfare. Like any kind of welfare expenditures have a 2.4 multiplier.
Right.
Like any money you give to the poorest people, they're going to spend that money because they have to.
And they're going to spend that money more than once, right? Like they're going to spend it at the grocery store, but then the grocery store is going to spend it somewhere else, right? And that's how that works. So the really famous example is the GI Bill. Somebody estimated that for every dollar the government spent sending all the GIs to college when they came home from World War II resulted in $7 of economic activity from new businesses and jobs and people getting education and whatever. And I don't know specifically of an instance. I don't know if somebody has done the actual research and crunched the numbers on NASA, but all of the technology and all of the knowledge that we have gained, I guarantee you, has some crazy multiplier effect. That 1% of that federal budget is responsible for, 15 or 20% of the economic growth, whatever. I'm pulling it out of my ass, but
it's like a financial butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly.
You do a little thing here and it becomes so much more.
And you mentioned the argument that I can't deal with. No, I mean you said it because it was stupid, and you said it was stupid for exactly the right reason. But I've encountered this literally since I was a child, and even as a child, it never made sense to me. But it was like people who make that argument of like, well, why should we be spending all this money in space when we could be spending it on Earth? It's like,
it's not gonna buy fucking tanks on Earth.
Well, it's
if you.
What do you think is happening? They're literally filling up these rockets with dollar bills and launching them into the sun. No, the money is still being spent on Earth,
right. Like
on rockets and engineers and jobs and scientists
and the materials and the fuel and whatever.
Whatever like the cost of the raw materials of the rockets.
We're not paying aliens to accept our rockets, please.
Aluminum is $5 a pound or whatever it is. Okay, so that. $3,000 of aluminum on that rocket is, yes, technically in space and not coming back. But
somebody got paid for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody got paid to design it. Somebody got paid to test it. Somebody got paid to launch it. And
hopefully people got paid to test it. Unless we're just going, hey, let's see what happens.
Yeah. And so
we're shooting the rehearsal, everybody.
so that argument has always annoyed me for that very reason, because it doesn't, even on the face of it, it doesn't make sense. Like, well, why don't we spend that money on Earth? We are, you moron!
The money doesn't disappear.
Good Lord!
It's like that scene in Superman 4 when he takes all the billionaires' money, gets them in a big net, and throws it into the sun.
Right. Yeah.
That's what happens to the NASA money.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, it would take a tremendous amount of delta V to actually launch something into the sun. Launching something into the sun would actually be incredibly, incredibly hard.
What is delta V?
It is basically the currency of how you move from point A to point B in space. So it is...
Did you learn this from Kerbal Space Program?
I mean, I understand it now because of Kerbal Space. I knew it was a thing, but I practiced in it.
I mean, I thought like in the vacuum space, you set something off on a trajectory, it will continue in that trajectory unless it gets interrupted by something.
Exactly. And that's true.
So delta V, why would you need more of it just to go in a straight line towards the sun?
Well, so delta V is actually a measure of acceleration, not of speed.
Oh.
So it's delta V is the measurement of how much you're speeding up or slowing down. So
it's a change in velocity.
Exactly.
Delta V.
Delta V, exactly.
Okay.
So you would actually... First, you would need enough delta V. You would need to accelerate enough to escape Earth's gravity and then enter the larger solar system, right, in orbit around the sun. And then you would need enough delta V to slow yourself down that you fell into the sun. Because otherwise, you would just orbit it. Because you're...
Like, if you have too much delta V, still, once you get to the sun, you'll just enter its natural orbit?
Not delta V at that point, because it's... So imagine, so we take off from Earth, right? We have enough delta V that we escape Earth's gravity. But imagine...
And then you stop accelerating, so there's zero delta V at that point.
Exactly. You're spending zero delta V at that point, because you're not changing your... you're not accelerating or deaccelerating. So imagine the Earth as like a platform on the back of a truck, and you're jumping off, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the truck is... well, okay, imagine the truck is going backwards for this visual tour. But imagine like the truck is, moving at 50 miles an hour or whatever, and then you jump off of it, right? When you're in midair, you're going to be traveling 50 miles an hour plus whatever speed you jump at.
However strong your legs are.
Exactly.
To launch you forward, yeah.
Exactly. And the same thing is happening when rockets lift off from Earth. You're
already moving with Earth.
Exactly.
And then you're pushing off of Earth.
Exactly. And so you already have the Earth's velocity when you launch, when you were to escape Earth's gravity and orbit the sun. So you would then have to get rid of all of that speed and acceleration, gravity, to fall into the sun. So it'd actually take a tremendous... You can try it in Kerbal Space Program. It takes a lot of delta V. You have to build a huge rocket to even get close.
Even if you ended up in orbit, doesn't every orbit eventually collapse at all? Like even one day?
No.
Trillion? No?
No, not necessarily. No.
I thought every orbit that didn't... I don't know. Like satellites routinely fall out of the sky, but it's sort of a scheduled thing. They know when it's going to happen. Or they can even make it happen, I guess, if they have a little thruster on it. I thought that everything was very, very slowly being drawn into larger bodies. Gravity.
No. So the reason satellites fall down eventually is because they're not truly all the way in space. There's still a little bit of atmosphere, even that high, right? So it's still flying through an atmosphere, just very little. But over time, that'll slow it down enough that it'll... Like, they have to boost the space station up periodically, otherwise it'll fall back down to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not because the orbit itself is changing. The orbit itself will stay the same. In true space, in a true vacuum, the orbit would stay exactly the same. But there is still just a little bit of atmosphere, even that high, which the space station is flying through, and it's slowing it down just ever so slightly.
Okay.
And so it periodically has to...
But something that was truly out in space, like a moon, would just stay there.
Yes, but actually, no. In the sense that it's not just the Earth's atmosphere that exists. Like, the sun also pulls out what's called the solar wind, right? So that's also a gas and a force that exerts itself.
Yeah, something physical that things run into.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so even that exists in interplanetary space. And
I mean, technically, light is a particle too.
Or is it?
Light is a particle and a wave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned The Martian before, because that was my favorite movie of that year.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the fuck out of that movie.
Even another great example, and why I love it is and it's great for exactly the same reason.
It's like a remake of Apollo 13.
It really
but
is,
a little more fantastical.
Yeah.
Like they have crazy big spaceships and they went to Mars and all that stuff.
It really is just Apollo 13 on Mars instead of in between the moon. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same structure of like, no, this is just a problem. Fix it.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the next problem? Okay.
Even when Matt Damon straps his butt to a bunch of rocket launchers on the surface of Mars on a platform, goes up into space and is spinning around very, very quickly. He's just like, it's just another problem to solve.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about how he gets back to orbit.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little
bit of a stretch.
It gets a little silly. And I remember reading, there was some interview with the author, I think. It was based on a book. He started writing it before he got like a lot of advisors who know about space travel involved. So the whole inciting incident in that movie is like there's a hurricane on Mars.
Right.
But
or
apparently,
a sandstorm.
A sandstorm, but the atmosphere on Mars is so thin.
Yep.
The worst you'd ever get is like a light breeze.
Yeah.
So the problem that is presented in that movie isn't even possible.
Correct.
However,
yes.
Once you get past that point, it's still an awesome movie, and it is just people figuring things out.
Yeah,
like we can do this.
There's a couple of nitpicks that you can have on that, and the sandstorm is the big one. Using the Pathfinder probe as the communication device is also doesn't really work, but that's all right.
We gotta let something slide to enjoy a movie here and there.
Even Apollo 13 cuts corner,
right.
Cuts this corner, cuts that corner. So But that's okay. You know, it's not Armageddon, right?
The helium disc thing. Do you know what that's for?
No, I don't know actually what that
I
is
read
in
through it
reference
really
to.
quickly, but in the IMDb trivia,
Yeah.
The helium disc was apparently something that they should have been more worried about.
Oh, really?
And in this movie, they were like, "Was that the helium disc? Oh well." Like
I don't know that. I didn't know that.
It's the kind of thing that could have totally fucked up their approach.
Yeah.
And I guess they just handled it in the movie by saying like, "Hey, we still on course? Yep, you're on course. Okay,
cool."
But like they didn't seem to be all that concerned.
Well, yeah, the it makes for excellent drama, and again is how it actually happens. But their period of blackout when they're returning through the atmosphere is longer than it was supposed to be, and it was the longest at that point. And that's because their trajectory was off.
They were going too shallow, right?
They were too shallow.
They were up here longer than they should have been. They should have come down sooner.
Yep. And fortunately, they weren't. They were deep enough that they didn't skip back out into space, which they could have. They were deep enough that they did actually return, but
that would have been
shallow.
fun. That would have been impossible to come back from.
Yes, because
they used up everything they had.
At that point, they had already jettisoned every piece of propulsion that they had on their ship.
They were in a tin can at that point.
Yeah.
Luckily, Kevin Bacon wasn't allowed to pilot things because he fucked it up in the simulator.
Yeah.
By trying to pilot the ship. So you can't pilot the ship.
That's the biggest corner cut, and that's something I didn't notice until actually this viewing is that scene where they're like, "Oh, is Jack ready? Is he up to it? Well, you got 2 days to launch."
And they go in the simulator.
And they go in the simulator and they do the training scenario, and oh, he fucks it up and they die. It's like if you actually listen to what the scenario is, it's them re-entering, which at that point. There's no more piloting to do.
Right.
You're just on that trajectory and you're falling, and hopefully you didn't fuck it up before that because it's too late to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually notice that until this viewing. So there you go. You always
we all learn something.
You always find new things in truly great movies.
Yeah. I'm trying to think other Ron Howard movies. He did Rush. That was a true story. He did
Heart of the Sea is. I don't know if that's his most recent, but it's one of his recent ones.
Right. God, there was something else.
Well, Han Solo in a couple months.
True story. Based on a true story.
The Han Solo movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No, there was some other...
I would have gone with you on that.
Let's see. He did Far and Away, Tom Cruise movie. I think that was based on a true story, but very dramatized.
I don't think I saw Far and Away.
It's not very good. God damn. No, that's all. Inferno.
Backdraft.
Backdraft was Ron Howard. Yes, that was a good one.
That was his first, I think.
His first movie?
Very early one, yeah.
No. He started working for Roger Corman. That's why Roger Corman's in this movie.
Right, but that was his first studio.
Oh, wow.
Actual.
Talk about moving the goalpost, Brian.
Yeah. Not to denigrate Corman and the world that he built, but his first real movie, quote unquote.
No, didn't he do Cocoon in the 80s?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He'd
okay,
been
so
around for a
Cocoon.
while. He just started with smaller things.
Yeah.
There was another true story that he did that I had in mind, and it wasn't Heart of the Sea.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, I guess. He's done a series of these true stories. Beautiful Mind.
There it is. Yeah.
And seems to be mostly successful. I don't think Heart of the Sea did well at all.
No, I think that bombed pretty hard.
Yeah, critically too. It was just like, meh.
Yeah.
But Beautiful Mind won Oscars. Apollo 13 was up for Oscars, at least.
Yeah. It did not win. We talked about this. It did not win for visual effects, which is still a great travesty.
Yeah.
One of the great Oscar travesties.
Mostly hold up.
Yeah, they do.
For being a movie from 1995, I'm impressed.
Yeah. There's I think it's Buzz Aldrin. There's a story of some Apollo astronaut looking at the footage of the rocket launch sequence and going, "Wow, that footage is amazing. I've never seen that before. Where did you find that new NASA footage?" Even he thought it was not special effects but a real footage.
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, we made that."
Well, that launch sequence, when we started it, you were like, "Oh, this part's awesome."
Yeah.
Every time I see it, it's great. That was mostly all the shots of the rocket I'm talking that's mostly based on some documentary footage that they had filmed of real launches like that. shot from in profile with a rocket kind of passing by.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
out of
But
frame,
all,
like,
but
that's
all
normal.
but none of it is stock footage. It's all,
No,
it's
yeah.
all
It's based on
original.
that, though.
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, they
even-
made it like.
I remember them making a big deal about including all the ice on the rocket falling off.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody even realized that those
Yeah.
rockets were frozen from whatever kind of fuel was in there.
Yep. And the arm swinging, which is another corner that they cut. All the arms of the launch tower swing off. They all swung off at the same time. They didn't do it one by one in a super dramatic way.
Boom.
Yeah.
Right in time
but
with the
that's okay.
camera going
Yeah.
flying downwards.
Yeah, that sequence is still like, you know, if I need energy, like if I need to pump myself up for something, that's the scene I'll think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you consider this an adventure movie?
Oh, I never considered it, but I guess so.
It sort of is.
Yeah.
It's sort of a misadventure.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, yeah, you could. It has not parallels, but you could make a comparison to something like Heart of Darkness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Their lives are on the line. They need to.
You're traveling into the unknown.
Yeah, it's very exotic location.
Yeah. Since Jack Swigert was most definitely outside the country.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other movies like this. Contact comes to mind. The Right Stuff.
Right Stuff, absolutely.
I haven't seen the entire movie, The Right Stuff. It's
very, very long.
Yes. It's on 2 discs.
Yeah. I think it has an intermission.
It's a swapper. But this kind of movie where problems are being solved, not just NASA movies, but even like Space Camp.
Yeah, Space Camp.
Space Camp. Let's send a bunch of 12-year-olds into space.
Space Camp. I haven't seen Space Camp in ages.
They have a kind of a similar problem. They're going to run out of oxygen. They need send somebody out on the little. Do they have a jetpack or are they on an arm?
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen it.
Remember.
Probably on the robotic arm.
Yeah, the robotic arm is what I remember. They have to repair the O2 tanks.
Yeah.
And then land a space shuttle. And they're only 16.
And the space shuttle's nickname was the Flying Brick for a reason.
But what else is there? Like I mentioned Contact because it's got the same feeling.
I mean, Contact is one of the other
exploration
all-time
and
great
adventure
science movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a scientist as the main character, and it's very concerned with like, well, we have this puzzle, let's solve it.
Right.
It's that kind of movie.
Right.
So, I don't know. Can you think of any more? I know there are.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what's so great about Apollo 13 is that, and now The Martian along with it, is that it's a movie that lionizes engineers.
Gravity.
Yes. Which is another great hard science fiction, even though it also has some, corners that it cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any. I'm trying to think of movies that are like, here is our hero. He is an engineer. Like, how often do you have that movie?
Dead Space, the video game. But I haven't played it. I just know that the main character is an engineer, but he ends up shooting a lot of monsters. That's what I know about.
Okay.
I am gonna give you a weird one.
Okay.
Tremors.
Oh.
Have you heard of Tremors?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Not since I was a kid, I don't think.
Well, it's still great. I might do it on the show later.
Okay.
But basically, nobody's an engineer, but they are like, I forget what their actual jobs are, but they live out in the middle of the desert. Like,
it's
everybody's
Kevin Bacon, right?
in construction. It's Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
And Fred Ward. All right.
I didn't know Fred Ward was in it.
He was in The Right Stuff, right? Fred Ward?
Fred Ward?
I think he was.
I don't think so.
I think you're wrong. But I'm not going to make a bet.
I would not bet on it either.
But Tremors is like they live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it basically becomes a series of problems of how to escape this valley without touching the ground. And they figure it out. Like some people do. It's a monster movie. Some people die.
Right.
But it's very much that kind of thing, like regular people, not elite special forces motherfuckers trying to figure their way out of a situation.
Yeah.
In that case, it's a giant monster worm. And the problem is they can't touch the ground or else the worm will get them. It's Lava the movie, basically. But it's got the same kind of spirit.
Yeah. Another aspect of Apollo 13 that what I've realized, like what my emotional button is, that the thing that gets me every time, which is people who continue to do their jobs in the face of certain or almost certain death, right? Like, and the quintessential example is the band from Titanic, which is like, like we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna do our job, and their job, helped keep everybody calm and the evacuation as orderly as possible, right? And when they like start to break up and go, okay, good luck, chaps, it was a pleasure. And then the one guy stays, and then the other, turn around and realize what he's doing, and then go back and join him. And they're just going to keep doing their job, even though they know they're going to, like, that's the thing that gets me. At that
point, they probably knew there was no room in the lifeboats.
Yeah, exactly. But just there's something about that nobility.
Stiff upper lip. I
guess so, maybe, yeah. And Apollo 13 is in the same kind of area. It's like, well,
we've never lost a man in space, so let's not start today.
Yeah, this is our job. We're probably going to die, but this is the job we have to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is about that concept that is, that button for me, but
it's inspiring. I think that's a heroic trait. Being able to stick to your guns in the face of every adversity.
Yeah,
there's a sort of stoicism to it,
and I think that's part of it, right? Because I think the other element of it is the further away you get from a job in which you might expect that to happen, the more powerful it gets. So, like a movie where a Navy SEAL gets trapped behind enemy lines and he fights to the last bullet, right? Like that still qualifies and that still has an effect, but that's not as unexpected as the band on the Titanic playing to their death, right?
Character in a movie armed with a gun to use the gun.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, not to say that disqualifies it, but it's what you would expect. Whereas the band on the Titanic, you would never imagine the musicians.
It's that heroism
in that
taking
scenario.
a different form.
Exactly. Yeah,
it's
heroism in kind of an unexpected form, I guess, or in an unexpected guise. The other one is the flight attendants from Sully, when like, okay, the engines are out and they're gonna crash land in the ocean, and they revert to their training, and that's the actual training. That's what flight attendants will actually do if your plane is in that situation.
What did they do? I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, they go instantly, and this is again real life.
They grab a parachute and abandon ship.
They will go from, would you like some refreshment, some water or pretzels, and they will go, buckle in, whatever the actual commands are. But they have very set FAA commands. They buckle in, and then they buckle themselves in, and then they just repeat over and over again, heads down, stay down, just to have make sure
everybody is hearing it.
Exactly, and just to keep everybody in that position throughout whatever the crisis is.
So nobody goes, is it okay now? No!
Yeah.
Oh, a piece of shrapnel took your head off.
Yeah.
Should have stayed down.
But the idea of like the flight attendant who's getting you your champagne or whatever it is, going from that to this super, button down military-esque
barking orders.
Behavior. Yeah.
You got some nice flight attendants if they're like, oh, what can I get you today? Normally on my flights they're like, what do you want? They're Janine from Ghostbusters.
What do you want? Well, another friend of mine is a flight attendant for Southwest, and he's a very jovial fellow. So he's nice.
Okay. I guess I'm getting on the wrong flights, traveling at the wrong time of year.
Well, do you fly Southwest?
No, I never have.
Oh. Because it's, it's not great. But they're
way to sell it.
But they're funny.
They're at least funny. I mean, no plane is great anymore. Even after I've had a bunch of friends telling me Virgin Airlines is the way to go, I was like, oh, okay. This is like not as horrible as United or American, but it's just a flight.
Still an airplane.
There's still a kid running up and down the aisles.
Yeah.
Nobody doing anything about it.
Yep.
They had better entertainment options. I'll give them that.
Yeah, the little screen in the back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we should call it there. We've been going for
45 minutes.
45 minutes after the movie. That's pretty good, man. We did a good job today.
And we talked about the movie for a solid 18 of those.
Right. It counts. It counts.
Okay. It's your
All right.
podcast. I'll leave it to you.
Okay, thanks for listening to The Hell With This. We are on Twitter at THWT Podcast because The Hell With This and The Hell With This Podcast were too long or taken. So I had to abbreviate THWT Podcast. And I think we are on Instagram. Chad does all the Instagram stuff.
Yeah.
Social
media. We're on social media.
We're on social media. If you look for us, maybe you'll find us.
But we'll also plug the network itself, right? You can find...
Oh, yeah. If you go to dragonwagonradio.com, is that their website?
Ooh.
Oh, fuck. If you search for Dragon Wagon Radio, you will find a vast network of different podcasts for your listening pleasure.
Including this one and my own podcast that I do with Jake about economics.
Yeah. Brian, thanks for coming by. Thanks for making me watch Apollo 13 again.
You're very welcome. Thanks for watching it with me.
I really enjoyed that.
Cool.
Bye, everybody.
We are go for launch.
It's Dragon Wagon.